Hello guys and welcome to my new video, and today we'll be talking about tanking. We'll be talking about how to get into tanking, and as a person who primarily plays a healer for most of their World of Warcraft career, getting into tanking, especially in BfA, can be extremely daunting. And I'll be talking about Mythic Plus primarily because I feel tanking in Mythic Plus can be extremely fun, and in my opinion, unlike any other role, healer or DPS, tank provides, or the tanking role is probably the most important in order to have a successful dungeon. Tank will kind of control the flow of the dungeon, control which mobs are being pulled, control when maybe have an interrupt rotation going. So one of the biggest barriers of entry, in my opinion, as someone who's just started tanking, started to pugging some of the lower keys and things like that, is the routes. Knowing routes is almost expected of a tank. So if you're someone who's kind of trying to get into tanking, you'll notice that the group will expect you to know which way to go, which mobs to pull, and how to get that 100% mob count before the dungeon is over. So this barrier can be extremely daunting for a lot of people, and I feel that there is quite a few resources, and this video will talk about the best resources for routes, the best resources in terms of WeakAuras, Addons, all of the tools that you need to succeed as a new tank. So this is going to be very basic. If you're if you're a pretty accomplished tank, you probably don't have to watch this video. Maybe you'll pick up on some new tools, maybe you'll pick up on some of the new route options, but generally this is for very beginners like myself. So first of all, when we talk about routes, there is an extremely good resource, and I feel this needs to be highlighted. More people need to know about this, and it's kind of found on competitive WoW Reddit page. There is a guy called Addons who posts every week, because the routes will change based on affixes. Routes will change based, like for example, teaming affix require a different kind of route, more mob counts. It'll change based on your group composition. For example, if you have a rogue with Shroud of Concealment, maybe all of a sudden you'll kind of want to, skip some of these mobs. Maybe you'll want to do a death run with the Warlock or a Shaman who can self-res and things like that. So all of a sudden it can get really complicated. But you'll notice that every week this guy posts weekly routes for the specific affix. So this week, teaming and volcanic. And if you click into it, you'll be brought into a page which has a list of all of the routes for the dungeons. Now, in order for these routes to really work in game, you have to download an add-on called Method Dungeon Tools. And in my opinion, if you're a tank and you don't have Method Dungeon Tools, you're not looking to improve. You're not looking to really push those keys, because eventually, once you start getting those 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10s, and you want to get into that 11, 12, 13, 14, 20 plus 20 keys, you cannot do it without Method Dungeon Tools. They're that important, in my honest opinion. So for example, I am going to be doing Toll the Gore, and I want to know what kind of, I'm going to be invited to Toll the Gore, and I want to know what kind of route I want to go. So you have a basic route and you have an expert route. Expert route usually will take into account more complicated skips. For example, it will assume that you have a rogue who can use Shroud of Concealment. So for me, I'm very basic in terms of tanking. I just want to go with a basic route, and I just click this, and it's being copied. And all I need to do now is to go to my game, and you'll see here I already have my Method Dungeon Tools installed. I can click on Method Dungeon Tools, I can click on Import, Control V, which is going to paste the whole string. You need to click OK, that's actually very important. You click OK and you click Import, and all of a sudden you'll know that, hey, okay, this is a basic route. I can pull all of these mobs. There's little kind of notes everywhere you can see. You can see that Toll the Gore has a lot of different, rooms. It can be a little complicated. This is when you come out of the gates here. Okay, I'm gonna pull the crocodile. I'm gonna pull these mobs. This guy is infested. I'm still gonna do it with these mobs. It's gonna be fine. So all of a sudden, this is really great to know what to do, how to skip everything. And for me, I also like to do this little thing. So in case we're going to mess up, we're going to pull extra mobs by accident or something. So for example, in Toll the Gore, in here, this is where the cannons. So I like to know how much percentage I need to know before I enter to the cannon room, because if I don't have enough percentages before entering cannon room, it's going to be quite embarrassing for everyone to go back and pull mobs and get it could be key over. So the way you can do it is that you can unclick all of these mobs. So this is the cannon room. You can unclick them, you can remove them, and you'll notice your count going down. And then I need to remove mobs from the very end room because there's 3 mobs here as well. So all of a sudden I know that I need to have 63%, 63.07. I need to have this minimum amount before I go into the cannon room, the outside of Toldagor. And all of a sudden I'll be safe because there's going to be enough mobs. And this is specifically made for Teeming Volcanic, Tyrannical, and Infested affix week. This is going to change based on other weeks. So this tool gives me a level of confidence of, okay, I'm going to follow this route, it's going to be fine. If I'm going to mess up, I need to have 63 or 64% and everything's going to be fine. No one's going to yell at me. All of a sudden, I'm confident. And I actually advise every new tank to import, like for whatever key they're doing, import the string and study it for like 5 minutes. Just have a look at what you need to do, read the notes, because this guy did a really, really good job on providing this really vital information for tanks. The next thing that I would really advise a lot of the new tanks to have, WeakAuras. WeakAuras play a big part in today's World of Warcraft community. WeakAuras are extremely versatile. They can provide you with so much information. They are shared by amazing people who spend hours and hours and hundreds of hours trying to make these WeakAuras work for dungeons, for anything. And I highly advise people to actually capitalize on this, because they're really important. So for example, right now we can look at the wago.io, which is, I always tell people to get to know this webpage because you can get a ton of awesome WeakAuras from here. And one of the WeakAuras that I really advise people to have is BfA Dungeons by Tyralis. And these WeakAuras will provide you with, not only for tanks, for anyone in general, these WeakAuras will provide you with any kind of audio visual cues that are available based on how important the spell is, and it can really simplify your life. You know when to like dodge abilities, when to move out, when to interrupt. Really good. Besides that, you have things like Mythic plus interrupt tracker, which again is quite important for a tank, because knowing how many people have interrupts available, you can be like, even if you don't communicate in a pug, you can just see, okay, my DH used their interrupt, so I can use the interrupt the next time. Because a lot of the times in pugs, there will be like 3 or 4 people who can interrupt, and everyone will use their interrupt on that single cast. This happens all the time. So as a tank with no communication available, just delay your interrupt and see if anyone else is going to interrupt, and then you're kind of going to spread your interrupts for longer. Of course, once you're trying to push higher keys, Discord and things like that, communication can be really important and actually probably vital for some of the mythic keys. On top of that, you have some of the smaller WeakAuras, and of course these WeakAuras and things like that are all going to be in the description below, and if you want to get them, just click and just, open the description, it's all there. Another WeakAura, which is pretty basic, is having the Infested on nameplates. Of course, I didn't want to focus too much on Infested because Infested is going away in a couple of weeks time, and there's going to be a new affix, Reaping, which again, it hasn't been tested at all, and it's probably going to have multiple ways to cheese and bug out at the very start. So I don't want to spend too much time on Infested, but this is great to have visual cues on infested mobs, especially on your nameplates. Then you have things like CC expiration time, so you know if the mob that's been CC'd, the infested mob by by a rogue or whatever, if that's about to run out, if the infested mob is about to go to your trash bag pool and heal everybody, it can be a wipe. So knowing when to re-CC, it's usually the DPS, the DPS requirement, but it's like a Brewmaster Monk you can CC, as a multiple other tanks you can CC, so this can be important. But besides WeakAuras, which again can be very helpful, there's probably another mandatory add-on that you should really have by this time, and that is going to be DBM, or Little Wigs / Big Wigs. So for the people who are not aware of this, you probably just started playing the game, because these add-ons are extremely popular right now. Everyone probably has a version of this. So Lil Wigs, which is an extension to Big Wigs. Big Wigs is the popular raid add-on. Lil Wigs is the Mythic Plus equivalent. Again, these add-ons are really great, and I specifically use DBM for the time being, and I use DBM with voice pack called VEM. And this is one of the questions that I get asked all of the time on the stream, because if you watch my stream, you'll notice that there's going to be audio cues, things like if I play a healer, it'll be telling me like, dispel this, watch out for this, run away, or stack, or whatever. There'll be an audio cue, which is really, really great in my opinion. I am more aware of the abilities when they're actually shouted at me, which I feel a lot of people are similar to me. And for tanks, it'll tell you things like, interrupt this.
Interrupt.
Taunt this, go away from this, stack, and things like that. And I definitely recommend people, if you are using DBM, LilWigs has the same kind of deal. I can't remember what the voice pack is called, but there is a voice pack for LilWigs as well, so you can do that. You can do the same thing. But if you're using DBM, make sure you install voice pack VEM and make sure it's enabled, and believe me, this is going to help you out a lot. So the last thing that I want to talk about is a general overview of boss abilities, and I've been looking quite a bit for like a general overview of what boss do and how to get a general, you know, what do I do on this boss? What if I have no idea on how to tank this boss? This is the first time I ever did this, and there is a nice Reddit post that I saw about for the Azeroth dungeon and raid guides with emphasis on tanking, and this is a spreadsheet kind of deal, and it has a lot of, it lists a lot of the boss abilities. Again, it lists routes as well, which I don't really use the routes at the moment here, but I feel it can be really interesting to read through some of the boss and mob abilities to see which ones to interrupt, to see which ones to, you know, the basic understanding of what the bosses do. Because if you're a tank and coming into a new Mythic Plus dungeon and you have no idea what the boss does, you can be in trouble. So reading through some of these can also help you. Maybe checking out some videos about this can be a very, very, very good starting tool to your, you know, Mythic Plus tanking career. So this has been a very general overview of what tools are important, what tools I feel are very good for a starting tank. Again, there are multiple ways to really progress as a tank. I was gonna cover how to pull infest, the little tricks on how to do mobs, like the general consensus of killing multiple mobs, multiple infested mobs at the same time. This is what most people do, because infested mobs don't heal each other unless the mob became infested through other means. But the general consensus is to stack all the infested mobs at the same time and kill them all together, and kill all the other non-infested mobs together away from the infested mobs. But that's just general tricks that I don't want to go into too much detail, because infested is going away. I can't wait to see reaping. I hope some of these tools are helpful. I really wish you luck in that tanking adventure, because you are the heart of the group. A lot of pressure is on your shoulders, and having these tools, reading up 5 minutes on these, is probably going to, you know, is probably going to give you a better start. Let me know if I missed out on some of the resources. Let me know if you have better resources. Let me know if you have, you know, some tools that are going to improve your gameplay even more. Let me know, guys. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next guide.